Chapter 6, Section 8, Day 2 is all about graphing other radical functions. So Section 8, Day 1 is about graphing square roots, and Day 2 is actually about the cube root function. So the parent function is the first one we're going to do, just to get a general idea of what's going on here. I'm going to put 0 in, I'm going to put a negative number in, I'm going to put a positive number in. If I put a 0 in, the cube root of 0 is 0. So that ordered pair is right here. I'm going to pick other smart values, cube roots, numbers that are perfect cube. The smallest perfect cube besides 0 is 8. If I put an 8 in, the cube root of 8 is 2. 8, 2 is right there. So likewise, I'm going to pick negative 8. Remember that you can cube root a negative number, not square, but cube root a negative number. And if I cube root negative 8, I get a negative 2. So this graph actually has a step kind of like feature in the middle where it kind of starts low, switches in the middle, and then goes up in the end. You're going to notice that it kind of flattens out a little bit on each end because you need a large value of x increase in order to get a small value of y. Just like the cube root function is flatter, or the square root function is flatter, the cube root is as well. So the parent function looks like that. It'll go through the origin. You can transform these just the way that we did square roots as well. That -1 on the end actually means that your graph is moving down 1. So instead of it starting at 0, 0, this graph is going to start at 0, negative 1. But I'm still going to pick negative 8 and positive 8. If I put a negative 8 in, the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. -1 is negative 3. So it's right there. If I put a positive 8 in, the cube root of 8 is 2. -1 is 1. So this graph is going to end up looking just like the last one, only it's shifted down just 1 unit. Number 3, that +4 in the end means that this graph has moved up 4. So instead of starting at 0, 0, it's going to start at 0, 4. Still going to pick negative 8 and positive 8. Those are smart cube root values. The cube root of 8, I'll do the positive first. The cube root of 8 is 2, plus 4 is 6. The cube root of negative 8 is negative 2, plus 4 is positive 2. So this graph, again, looks just like the parent function, only it has moved up 4 units. Probably should do a little bit better right here. This graph should really be curved a little bit more. Try not to make it flat. If you make it a straight flat line, it's going to look more linear than cube rootish. So for this, you try it. It has moved down 5. Just pick your smart values of 8 and negative 8. Plug them in. You should get the same as the parent function, only it has gone down 5 units. So in this one, the transformation that has occurred, that -1 inside, actually moves our graph right 1. Now, when we have left and right movements, our smart values change a little bit. That means that this graph, instead of going through the origin, is actually going to go through 1, 0. So instead of picking a positive 8, if I move 1 unit to the right, I would rather pick a positive 9. So normally I would pick 8, but 1 unit to the right would be 9. Normally I'd pick negative 8, but 1 unit to the right is negative 7. So you'll see I'll put the positive in first. If I put a 9 in for x, 9 minus 1 is 8, and the cube root of that is 2. If I put a negative 7 in, negative 7 minus 1 is negative 8, and the cube root of that is negative 2. So your smart values shift with the graph, especially in the left and right value. So negative 7, negative 2, oops, is right there. And 9, 2 is right there. So your graph, again, same general shape, just slides over. Left and right slides, left and right translations force you to pick other values for x because they won't be as pretty. They won't be perfect cubes if you always pick 8 and negative 8. In number 5, this graph has moved to the left 4. So instead of starting at 0, 0, it's going to start at negative 4, 0. Instead of picking positive 8, I'm going to pick a 4. Because if I was at 8 and I move 4 units to the left, that's really 4. I normally would pick a negative 8, but now I'm going to pick a negative 12. Negative 12 causes a little bit of an issue. Negative 12 plus 4 is negative 8, and the cube root of that is negative 2. The reason I say it causes an issue is because at this point I'm off the graph. It's okay. Technically, you should rescale, but I won't for this one. 4 plus 4 is 8, and the cube root of that is 2. So this graph is the same graph, only it slides to the left 4. So you're in those two transformations have occurred. I have a left 2 and a reflection. So let's talk about the left 2 first. The left 2 implies that this graph will actually cross through -2, 0. So my smart values, because I moved to the left 2, will be a -10 and a +6. So let's do the +6 first. 6 plus 2 is 8. The cube root of that is 2, but there's a negative in front. So this graph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, actually ends up in the fourth quadrant. If I put a -10 in, -10 plus 2 is -8, and the cube root of that is -2, with the negative out front, turns positive. And so you'll notice that a negative, a reflection of these graphs, actually starts high and ends low. A reflection will start high and end low. It'll flip the entire graph across the x-axis. Number 7, I have a reflection, and I have a right 4, which puts my starting point at 4, 0. So instead of picking 8, I'll pick 12, and instead of picking -8, I'll pick -4, because everything moves to the right 4. So 12. 12 minus 4 is 8, and the cube root of that is 2, with a negative out front. -4 minus 4 is -8. The cube root of -8 is -2, with the negative out front turns positive. So again, this graph is going to start high and low. Whoops. That's bad. Today is not my day for graphing. Number 8, 2 moves here. I have a reflection and a down 6. So remember, with left-right movements, you have to switch your smart values, but with these, you don't. When you move just up or down, there are no issues. The cube root of -8 is -2, with the negative out front becomes a +2, and 2 minus 6 is -4. The cube root of 8 is 2, with the negative out front is -2, minus 6 is -8. So it'll start high and end low. Anytime there is a reflection across the x-axis with cubits, it's going to start high and low. Reflection and an up 3 means that it'll start high and low and go through 0, 3.